A long time ago in a garden shed far, far away, one man was still coming to terms with the abrupt closing of his previous studio and was now trying to figure out how to make his dream a reality. That dream was Infinitesimals, a larger-than-life sci-fi epic drawing influence from classic immersive sims, iconic films, and even his grandfather's time serving in World War II for the Allies. Movies like Star Wars Episode 4 A New Hope, Predator, as well as watershed 90s gaming classics like Deus Ex and Thief have been influential in the development of Infinitesimals. After playing Infinitesimals at Summer Game Fest Playdays, these aren't marketing ploys but are part of the DNA that can be easily felt, seen, and heard. So let's talk about Infinitesimals, what it is, and why you should be excited, as well as a few reasons to have reservations. Back in June, we were invited out to Los Angeles and given the privilege to attend Summer Game Fest Playdays. There were a lot of incredible games to play, but most were blue chip titles from known studios or sequels in existing successful franchises, which have become the standard across the media landscape. Making games, movies, and TV is very expensive, and as a result, executives have become risk averse. At Summer Game Fest Playdays, Epic Games was in attendance showing off a few of their games from their publishing arm that supports indie developers with epic mega grants and even in some cases full publishing. The 3 games that they brought to Summer Game Fest couldn't have been more diverse. There was End of Abyss from Section 9 Interactive, which is an isometric Metroidvania from former Target founders. There was Out of Words, which is a completely handcrafted stop-motion co-op adventure, and there was Infinitesimals. Before getting too far ahead, I got the chance to sit down and play Infinitesimals, but more importantly, I got the chance to talk with James McWilliams, founder of Qubit Studios, and I wanted to understand what it took to get to this point. At the end of 2012, after starting up another company and working on a game called Eon, the project received a publishing deal. Unfortunately, after a year, the rug was pulled out, the project was abruptly cancelled, and the IP was gone. James was disillusioned. At the time, this was devastating, but in hindsight, this would be a very important lesson for James and play an integral role in the development of Infinitesimals. After spending decades working in the industry on huge titles like Crackdown 3 and Operation Flashpoint, as well as smaller titles like Snake Pass, James realized that if he wanted to make the game in his head, there would only be one way without compromise. In 2013, James went to his backyard, cleaned out some junk, created some space in his garden shed, and started Qubit Studios with nothing more than passion and a clear vision. To generate income to pursue his dream, James began creating assets for the Unreal Engine marketplace, creating sound effects and particle effects that other developers could buy for use in their game. The money that this brought in allowed James to pay himself a measly salary of minimum wage for the first 3 years of development and work on Infinitesimals in parallel to creating assets for the Unreal marketplace. After 3 years, James was finally able to hire the first person to help with programming Infinitesimals in 2016. It was at this moment in time when James realized that the project became very real. In 2019, Qubit Studios secured an Epic Mega Grant, which is a program that is focused on supporting smaller teams who are using Unreal Engine to push the boundaries of real-time 3D technology, with funding anywhere from $5,000 to $500,000 USD. After securing an Epic Mega Grant, Qubit Studios only expanded to 4 people, and even after signing a publishing deal with Epic, the team only grew to 8, with James still operating out of his garden shed. This shows a commitment to substance over style. James isn't concerned with the vanity of having a polished concrete and glass office space. He is more concerned with taking the money and using it wisely to facilitate turning his dream into reality. Infinitesimals is paramount to everything, and through his actions and words, it's evident how personal Infinitesimals is to James. Earlier we mentioned how the abrupt closure of his previous studio would pay dividends for Infinitesimals, and that's because before securing the Epic Mega Grant, James was approached twice with publishing deals and declined them both. First in 2014, but then again by a much larger company in 2019. Both publishing deals wanted full control of the IP, which is something that James wasn't willing to part with after learning the hard way in 2012. It's a very possible scenario that if James took either of those deals, Infinitesimals wouldn't exist anymore. You can't ignore the influence of Star Wars, James tells me. Within minutes, you can hear that influence as the score sounds very reminiscent of John Williams from episode 4. You are instantly transported to another universe. You play as Captain Ocni Rellenrake, the leader of an elite alien squadron. After a catastrophic crash, Captain Ocni and the rest of his squadron have become stranded on an alien planet, which happens to be Earth. Making matters worse, the entire squadron has become separated, and you now need to find the missing members. Captain Ocni is smaller than your average protagonist, as he is no bigger than a grasshopper and must navigate his way through a world filled with treacherous terrain, local wildlife, and deadly machines. What's immediately interesting is that Infinitesimals is set on Earth, but it's very unclear what time period. In addition to trying to piece back together the mystery of planet Earth, you are trying to find the rest of your squadron and uncover the mystery of the colony that you were supposed to join that has vanished, as mechanical sentinels known as the hunter-gatherers appear to have completely taken over. Your only chance left is to reunite with your squad, rebuild, and rise up against the hunter-gatherers. When I first got my hands on Infinitesimals at Summer Game Fest, it felt very visceral. The movement was fast and frenetic, but also very fluid, and when it came time to shoot my first bullet with an SMG, it felt violently uncontrollable. There was a lot of recoil, and I couldn't just hold down the trigger. I had to intentionally aim and understand how to wield it properly. Combat also embraced a physics system that felt reminiscent of Dead Space, as enemies reacted based on dismemberment. Instead of shooting limbs off of necromorphs, you blast mechanical legs from sentinel robots. James tells me that the goal was for every gun to have a realistic ballistic simulation. The challenge comes from knowing each gun, the spread it has, and getting good at it. A large factor also includes picking the right tool for the right job, he says. There will be numerous guns in the game, as well as tools to help mitigate recoil problems, I was told, which sounds like weapon attachments, especially if the intention for combat was to capture a milsim feel, he told me. As for the immersive sim aspects of Infinitesimals, almost every aspect of the game can be approached in a variety of ways. If you use sensor mode, you can catch a radio tower and hear some enemy communications and then react accordingly. There was also a keypad where my companion suggested using 1, 2, 3, 4, which worked and also showed a lighthearted side of Infinitesimals. However, I did also have the ability to open the sensor and trace an electronic signal, which probably would allow me to disable a security system with the right upgrades. I would also be willing to wager that if I went to the roof of that building, there would be an alternate way in up there as well. Once inside, I opted for a stealth approach because if a game offers stealth, that is the approach that I try to do first, and I asked James if it was possible to complete the game in full stealth without getting involved in any combat. And he said, from a story perspective, there are certain moments that need to be crafted in such a way to create the overarching narrative, especially with the size of Qubit Studios. There will be times that you can't avoid smashing things up. What lies at the forefront of your journey is player choice. Just like Deus Ex and Thief, there are numerous ways to approach every single scenario and create your hero in the way that you want. What defines your character is how you play and the gear that you equip, James tells me. Finally, it's important to note that Infinitesimals isn't an open world game, but like Deus Ex and Thief, games that have heavily influenced the development, there are huge, curated sandboxes that James refers to as large hubs. And in these areas, you're free to explore and investigate whatever sparks your interest. Qubit Studios wants to encourage and reward player curiosity. The big caveat with Infinitesimals is that as good as it sounds and feels, we have only played about 30 minutes of the experience. Qubit Studios is a very small team, and Infinitesimals is their debut title with grand aspiration. Obviously, the 30 minutes that we played felt amazing, and the fact that Epic Games not only awarded them a mega grant, but also after that decided that Infinitesimals was worth publishing upon closer look, bodes very well for the final product. Speaking of Epic Games, Infinitesimals is launching as an Epic Games PC exclusive alongside PS5 and Xbox Series at launch. The hope is that the lack of Steam and wish listing won't hurt the awareness and doesn't hurt Infinitesimals when it releases in 2026. Before getting to our final thoughts, I just wanted to take a quick second to say thank you for checking out this video. There are a lot of options out there, and I'm glad that you stopped. If you enjoyed the content, then likes, shares, and comments are extremely helpful. And if you want to see more like this, then subscribe. Video games is a positivity first outlet, and we believe that gaming can and should be a force for good. Infinitesimals is more than just inspired by Episode 4, A New Hope, as Infinitesimals is a new hope for Qubit Studios, but also for fans of immersive sims. The hope is that Infinitesimals finds success because James indicated that this is just a small slice of the much bigger narrative that they hope to explore. I'll leave you with this. At the end of my time with Infinitesimals, I asked James what he wished that people knew about the game, and he said that when Infinitesimals first started in 2013, there was nothing else like it. Infinitesimals is a story-driven adventure with visceral combat and sci-fi simulation elements. Infinitesimals means extremely small, and even though Qubit Studios is only 8 people, the ambitions for Infinitesimals are substantially larger. At a quick glance, it might share a resemblance with another title on the market that uses a small in nature premise. However, Infinitesimals is infinitely different. That's all for today, but until next time, be good to your fellow gamer, but more importantly, be better to your fellow human.